And you don't have to go out and kill nobody to do it.
We each, as individuals, have a responsibility to make it better so that don't never happen again. What happened in 1992.
A single mom on the rebound finds happiness in the arms of a new man.
They were engaged and even starting to plan their wedding.
She already knew the colors. She couldn't stop talking about it.
But their wedding bells will never ring.
There's blood everywhere.
Her fiancé is the one who found her.
As the investigation begins, the bonds of love will be tested.
His timeline didn't necessarily add up.
After they broke up, they still saw each other.
There's a possibility for a love triangle going on.
Did he know she was cheating?
They both have a motive, and now they're pointing the finger at each other.
It opened all kind of doors and all kind of new questions.
You think you're going to commit the perfect crime, and there's no such thing.
November 18th, 2015. It's a typical Wednesday morning in Portage, Indiana, a suburban community at the southern tip of Lake Michigan.
Portage is about 45 minutes outside of Chicago. It's a quiet, safe community. It's the kind of place that people go to start families and get away from the big city.
But on this morning, one Portage family is about to learn that tragedy can strike anywhere, even in the safest of places.
911 was your emergency.
Funny in the ambulance right now, please, please, please.
The caller is 20-year-old Martell Robinson.
He was so upset, crying hysterically.
He was just screaming, come help me. There's something wrong with my fiance.
Just lay on the ground, please.
Do you know what happened?
No, I don't.
He said he had just gotten home from working a late shift.
I just see blood just everywhere. Please, just send somebody, please.
Sheriff's Department!
Within minutes, officers arrive on the scene.
The door was open, they come in at gunpoint and discover this guy in there.
Hands, show me your hands!
No, I was doing that call.
Okay, move to the corner of the room. He clearly has blood on his clothing and his hands, so they didn't know what to take of it.
Sometimes the person who's making the 911 call is in fact the perpetrator.
Police quickly turn their attention to Martell's fiancée, 30-year-old Tiara Thomas.
She is laying on the floor. There's blood everywhere.
The young woman had been shot several times.
You can see that she has a head injury.
They didn't know what to think. Had they just walked in on a domestic dispute, or was there a killer on the loose?
Gary, Indiana native Tiara Thomas was always the life of the party.
She was a fun-loving person, very spontaneous, and someone that everybody got along with.
She loved to make people laugh, and when they were around her, they just felt warm and welcome and at home.
Though no one felt more at home around Tiara than Kevin Campbell.
Tiara and Kevin have a long history.
Together since high school, Kevin and Tiara had taken on every challenge thrown at them and formed a bond well beyond their years.
It was such a close relationship together. Tiara's family took him in like he was one of their own.
It wasn't long before Tiara and Kevin announced they were adding a new member to the family, too.
After Kevin and Tiara graduated, she got pregnant.
Tiara and Kevin went from high school sweethearts to building a family almost immediately.
Though the two never tied the knot, over the next several years, they had 2 more children and continued building a life together.
Kevin became a police officer with Gary Police Department in Indiana.
Tiara got a job at the Department of Social Services and started taking evening classes at the local college.
Well, I see you tonight.
Well, if you can pull me away from my homework, you can.
I'll see what I can do.
She had dreams of being an accountant, one day opening her own daycare.
As their family grew, Kevin and Tiara bought a house just outside Gary, and Kevin transferred departments to be closer to home.
They were both growing in their careers.
But with busy jobs and raising 3 kids, they had less time for each other, and the romance began to fade.
They had been together 14 years. They have 3 children together. So there was a lot vested in that relationship, but things started to gradually fall apart.
Eventually, Tiara and the kids moved out, and Kevin moved on.
Kevin started dating a young girl named Brooke, who was a waitress at a diner where a lot of local Hammond cops like to hang out.
Kevin's new relationship was a bit of a shock to Tiara.
When she found out that Kevin had a younger woman, you know, that kind of made Tiara feel a little insecure.
It definitely didn't help that Kevin and Brooke got married and had a baby together.
Tiara was heartbroken.
They had been together for 14 years and he never popped the question. Suddenly he made this new woman his wife. It was a big blow to Tiara.
But Tiara wouldn't stay down for long.
You got a minute?
Yeah, of course. Come in.
Tiara meets this young gentleman, Martel, who she works with.
Despite the colleagues' age difference, the two instantly hit it off.
Tiara was significantly older than Martel.
The age difference didn't even faze them. They just more so fell in love with each other.
They had a lot in common. Their conversations were great.
By the beginning of 2015, Martel moved into Tiara's apartment.
He'd also taken a night job at a nearby factory to start earning some more money.
You know, Martel was all in. He loved Tiara and her children. He was in it for the long haul.
And unlike Kevin, Martel was willing to make it official.
He proposed to her and they were set to be married.
1 second before I forget. You know, I've been planning and looking, and look at this cake right here. What do you think about that?
Look, I told you, if you love it, I love it.
That's why I love you.
Is that right?
She was super excited to get married. She's ready to go.
Her and Kevin had been separated for about a year. Something felt different with Martel. It's like she had waited for him her whole life.
The future for Tiara was really bright.
But now, on the morning of November 18th, 2015, her future hangs in the balance.
Hands, show me your hands.
No, I was the one that called.
Martel had just called 911 to report that he had found Tiara laying on the floor, covered in blood.
Patrol officers respond, find her in the bedroom.
There's pooling of blood under the victim, so they obviously know they have a very serious crime scene here.
It was gruesome.
There's a shoulder wound that wasn't fatal. There's also a shot that went through both arms to the head.
But there may be a faint glimmer of hope.
She's still alive. By mid-November of 2015, 30-year-old Tiara Thomas was looking to the future with her new fiancé, Martel Robinson.
They were in love and ecstatic to build a life together.
But on the morning of November 18th, 2015, Till Death Do Us Part becomes all too real.
After receiving a call from Martel, police arrived to find her lying on their bedroom floor, covered in blood, her body riddled with bullets.
At first, they thought she was dead, but they were able to detect a faint pulse.
She was clinging to life, so they're trying to do everything that they can.
She's transported out of there to the hospital.
While EMTs work to save Tiara, officers transport Martel to the station for a formal statement.
Despite him telling them that we came in and discovered her like that, they obviously can't verify that on his word.
Martell's the one who found her and called us. You have to look at him.
While Martell waits at the station, detectives arrive at the crime scene and begin their investigation.
They find these 9mm shell casings.
There was no weapon found. The detectives discovered a pillow with gunshot holes in it.
The belief is a pillow was used to try to silence the shots.
Other aspects of the scene allow detectives to reconstruct the shooter's likely motive.
There was no signs of forced entry. It didn't appear that anything was stolen.
They had no evidence that there was an attempted sexual assault.
It appears to have been a cold-blooded, violent attack.
This was someone close to her, someone who either had a key or for whom she would have opened the door or who would have known when the door would have been unlocked.
A fact that immediately points to one man.
It would make sense for Martell to be a prime suspect.
He's found at the crime scene. He obviously has access and a key to the residence. Certainly the opportunity for him to be the perpetrator is there.
Martell could have shot Tierra, ditched the gun, and then called 911 as the distraught fiancé.
But when detectives join him in the interrogation room, Tierra's fiancé still appears beside himself with grief.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
You okay?
No, sir, no!
Based on his reaction in the interrogation room, he's beyond heartbroken.
Or Martell's a good actor.
Well, I'm not sure what happened. So we're gonna.
Oh my God!
Try.
According to Martell, he and Tierra had been alone together earlier that evening.
The kids had spent the night with their father, Tierra's ex, Kevin Campbell.
They came pick him up yesterday. So me and her, we were together up until 10 o'clock last night. That didn't work.
He stated that he works a shift and he gets off at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Martell also says just before his shift ended, he tried to call Tierra to make sure she was up in time for work.
I figured, hey, kid's not home. She probably on sleep. So as soon as I'm getting off work, I'm calling her phone.
She didn't answer, which was odd to him because he knew that she should be getting up, getting, ready for work.
According to Martell, he noticed something else odd when he got home.
Tierra, my apartment was on lock. Of course, I was going to go in there and say something to her, but that's not safe.
Tierra.
I walked in there. She was just on the floor, just bleeding everywhere.
He became very hysterical. He immediately called 911.
That's terrible to come home to. And I want to be here to talk to you and offer you any type of help that I can get you better. But I also want to help her by finding out exactly what went down. We asked Martell, what does he think? Because, who would have done this?
Martell can think of only one person.
I don't want to say baby daddy, but the kid's father and her don't get along.
He's saying the only person that might have a beef with her is her ex, the father of her 3 children, Kevin Campbell.
He got a gun, he's a cop. That's the only thing that adds up to me. And nobody else would try to harm her at all.
Martell's quick accusation raises red flags for detectives.
He immediately pointed the finger at this guy, and police were thinking, is this an honest suspicion, or is this an attempt to throw the investigation off track?
Of course, those are things that, we're going to look at every way we can.
And in order to do that, detectives will need Martell's full cooperation.
We asked to do some tests, which he cooperated with. We wanted to examine his phone, which he immediately gave us.
He was asked for his clothing, articles as well. He immediately volunteered to surrender them for forensics.
At the end of the interview, detectives deal Martell a final blow.
He's got some really bad news, man.
Please don't, Dad. Please, I don't want to know.
Tierra had passed away.
Our fire department's really good about, getting them to the hospital as quickly as possible. But she ultimately succumbed to her injuries.
No! No, please, no!
He just broke down and cried.
Martel was devastated. He was inconsolable, crying, wailing, and this could be heard throughout the police station.
According to a recent study, 22% of victims who suffer gunshot wounds die as a result of their injuries. However, gunshot wounds that result in brain injuries are among the most lethal, with a reported fatality rate between 85 and 90%. Just hours after 30-year-old Tiara Thomas was shot in her Portage, Indiana apartment, detectives suddenly have a homicide investigation on their hands. While his reaction appears genuine, detectives can't help but wonder if they're watching a heartbroken fiancé or a killer trying desperately to cover his tracks.
Is this for the camera, so to speak? Is it, for our interview? Is it truly grief? Sometimes it's hard to say.
Especially considering Martel's insistence that Tiara's ex, Kevin Campbell, is responsible for her death.
Detectives can't help but notice that, even though he's genuinely distraught, he seems to be very adamant in pointing the finger at Kevin.
Still, detectives follow his lead. Less than an hour after interviewing Martel, Kevin is called down to the station.
Kevin was also very emotional. He was in a complete state of shock. He was trying to figure out who could have done this to Tiara as well.
For the first several minutes of the interview, when we especially started talking about Tiara, he was crying.
How long were you guys together? It's okay. A lot happened today.
He's crying profusely, so much so that the police officer decided to kind of give him a minute.
He's a fellow brother police officer, so they give him certain consideration.
Once Kevin regains his composure, he's able to answer the detective's questions.
Were you married at some point? Okay. But you were raising 3 beautiful children, right?
Yeah. They've been separated, but according to him, it's pretty amicable.
He talked about, she was great as far as allowing to see the children.
Including the night before Tiara's murder.
He had picked the kids up 5:30-ish the prior night, brought them home, and said he was home all night. Until morning when he got them up.
What time did you have to get them all up?
A little after 5:45, I believe.
Kevin says he left at about 6:45 to take them to school in Portage.
Kevin said he hadn't seen Tiara since he picked them up, although they had been texting each other that night.
Kevin told the investigators that he was texting Tiara about homework for the kids.
You guys kind of went back and forth about school stuff?
And then the next morning, he texted her again.
He said that he didn't hear from Tiara that morning.
Do you think anything one way or the other, unusual or not unusual, that she didn't respond?
I feel she must feel this way.
Okay.
It seems he wasn't worried enough to go check on her. But even if he had, Kevin tells detectives that he didn't have a key to her apartment.
My oldest has a key, but he doesn't bring it with him.
Next, detectives ask Kevin the same question they asked Martel Robinson. Who would want to hurt Tiara?
My first thought would be Martel.
Much like Martel, Kevin seemed intent on implicating the other man in Tiara's life.
Detectives had 2 men, both emotional, both having feelings for the victim, pointing the finger at each other.
But is there another possibility?
Was she jealous of the gal that's your wife now?
I don't think so.
They weren't ruling anything out at this point. And detectives knew that there's a possibility for jealousy or envy to also be a part of this whole situation.
Brooke was the new wife, and although Kevin had been with Tiara for 14 years, he never married her.
Detectives wondered if, in Tiara's mind, Brooke had broken up her family. And perhaps in Brooke's mind, Tiara was always going to be a part of Kevin's life. And maybe she was tired of living in her shadow.
Detectives bring Brooke in for questioning that afternoon, where she's pretty candid about her relationship with Tiara.
I don't think she ever really got over the fact of Kevin marrying me.
Brooke goes on to say that she didn't have any animosity toward Tiara.
Lord knows I tried to be nice to her, but she just wasn't having it.
Brooke also told detectives that, as far as she knew, Kevin had been home all night.
I was up about 2 or 3 times with the baby, and he slept right through it.
So she gives him an alibi to his whereabouts at the time of the murder.
Brooke said she never left the house either. She had been taking care of their young child all night.
With Kevin and his new wife seemingly alibied out, detectives circle back to Martel.
The police speak to his supervisor to question him about Martel's whereabouts.
I spoke to his supervisor of the midnight shift, who said he saw him all night.
He worked at late shift. He got off at 7 in the morning.
So with both alibis seemingly checking out, detectives are at a standstill.
Could there be something, or someone, detectives have overlooked?
Maybe. There's a third man in Tiara's life. Somebody that her ex and her fiancé had no idea about.
Hoping to gain more insight into Tiara's personal life, detectives spend the next day digging into her background.
As part of the investigation, they're going to reach out to the close friends and acquaintances of the victim.
Though it's not until detectives sit down with a friend of Tiara's named Stephanie Phillips that they truly learn anything useful.
She laid it out. I mean, she was very clear. She said, listen, you know, Martel and Tiara are good. Their relationship is good.
So she wasn't seeing anyone else?
I mean, nobody except Kevin.
Her ex-boyfriend?
Yes.
As it turned out, it wasn't a clear break.
Stephanie was able to tell that there was something going on between Tiara and Kevin.
They've still been hooking up, despite the fact that they're both with other people.
"24 hours after 30-year-old Tiara Thomas was gunned down, detectives receive intel from Tiara's friend that could blow the case wide open.
Stephanie thinks that Tiara may have been going behind her fiancé's back with her ex-boyfriend.
Well, her friend said after they essentially broke up, they still saw each other.
This was a very significant turn in the case because it opened up so many questions in the investigation.
Could Martel have found out that Tiara had been seeing Kevin?
Detectives wonder if his grief could have actually been remorse over something he had done in a jealous rage.
Or could her ex-boyfriend Kevin be the one to blame? Perhaps the pending nuptials of Tiara and Martel were more than he could bear.
The affair between Tiara and Kevin seemed to taper off the more serious that Martel and Tiara got about their relationship. And once they started setting a wedding date, Tiara became far and far more removed from Kevin.
Another possibility is Kevin's new wife, Brooke. Maybe she learned her husband was cheating on her with Tiara and sought revenge.
Brooke, Martel, Kevin, if what Stephanie is saying is true, any one of them could have had a motive.
And are you sure there's still something going on between them?
Well, he sure acts like it.
It seemed to the friend that Kevin had made sexual comments to Tiara, almost like you're still together.
And what kind of comments are we talking about? Did you ever see them get physical?
Not exactly.
Kevin would send her flirty text messages.
But Kevin's texts weren't just flirty.
Stephanie did share one thing that was somewhat disturbing. His son went to the orthodontist and it was going to be a fairly expensive bill. And Kevin said something to her like, well, if you're going to need that money, when can I get an appointment with you?
It seemed like Kevin wasn't going to give Tiara money for their son unless she agreed to hook up with him.
Tierra shared with her that Kevin was already under some sort of financial constraints.
So that was another red flag for us.
With Stephanie's allegations in mind, detectives begin digging into Kevin's finances.
They find out that he's been making these huge child support payments.
Initially, when they separated, there was no formal child support or really any other guidelines set down. They just kind of did it between them. Tierra then in 2015 went to court, and final court order was an amount of $1,500 a month taken out of his checks.
To detectives, the court order seemed like a significant amount for someone in Kevin's situation.
Kevin had a lot going on. He had a new wife with a new small child, and he has financial responsibility extended to the new household as well as the old household.
Police officers don't make all that much. I don't think Kevin, given his other bills, could keep up with the child support payments.
Given Kevin's financial statements, it seemed child support wasn't the only thing Kevin had fallen behind on.
We found out on his credit report, there were accounts and collections, there were accounts closed, they were written off by companies, delinquencies of 120 days, a couple of credit cards. It was a mess.
His savings account had about $7.89 in it, and Kevin was basically broke.
Then, 5 days before Tierra's murder, Kevin had hit rock bottom.
Kevin had his vehicle repossessed while him and his wife were at the mall.
They came out from shopping and it's gone.
Which leaves detectives wondering if a desperate Kevin had been pushed to the breaking point.
Was this the motive for Kevin to have murdered Tierra?
If something were to happen to Tierra, obviously the child support to her is going to stop.
While the theory is starting to add up for investigators, there's just one problem: the timing.
Brooke did verify that Kevin was home. She was up a couple of times that night, tending to the newborn.
However, Brooke, Kevin, and the baby were the only ones in the home that night. Kevin and Tierra's kids were also sleeping over.
So now detectives want to question Kevin's oldest son, Camden.
Maybe he'd heard something or seen something that night.
On November 25th, 2015, 1 week after his mother's murder, detectives have the difficult job of interviewing the 12-year-old at his grandmother's house.
You have to handle, a kid that age with kind of kid gloves. It's asking him, pretty simple questions.
Despite the care detectives take in questioning Camden, he's unable to say whether or not his father left the house that night.
Camden was asleep and did not see anyone coming or going from the house.
It was starting to look like questioning Camden was a bust.
Until the questions turned to the next morning, when Kevin drove the kids to school.
Camden mentions that on the way to school, his dad pulled over at a park.
What's going on, Dad?
Just wait in the car. I'll be right back.
He couldn't really see what was in the bag, but Camden did say that his father stopped and threw a bag in the garbage can.
So now detectives are wondering what was in the bag that Kevin had gotten rid of, and could it be the key to solving Tierra's murder?
It's been 1 week since Tierra Thomas's murder, and her 12-year-old son Camden has just given detectives a break in the case.
Tierra's son says that on the way to school the morning after the murder, his father, Kevin Campbell, stopped at the park, tossed a bag into the garbage.
He told his son it was just a bag of trash that he was getting rid of, but it could have been a murder weapon in there, it could have been some of Tierra's items.
It could have been the clothes that Kevin was wearing the night of the murder.
We just didn't know. But this brought up a huge red flag to police.
That's not the only thing the 12-year-old says that raises suspicion.
Camden told officers that his father had inquired about Martell's schedule in the days leading up to the murder, and that's something he had never done before.
It sounded like Kevin was trying to figure out when Tierra would be alone inside the apartment.
And what Camden says next leaves detectives all but convinced that Kevin was plotting her murder.
I asked about the keys. Said, did your dad ever ask you to bring a key? He goes, yes.
The day before Tierra's murder, his father had asked him to make sure he brings the key. We do know from the initial crime scene there was no forced entry, and this may very well explain the opportunity for Kevin to have been able to get in there.
This is very damning information.
Now, all detectives need is concrete evidence.
Camden was able to take the officers to the park where they dropped that bag off.
But when detectives search the garbage can, they come up empty-handed.
Everything's gone. Nothing's there.
Undeterred by this setback, detectives turn their sights to Kevin's home in nearby Hammond, Indiana.
I had a search warrant drawn up and signed by a judge.
They go to Kevin's house, they do a full search, but they're unable to find any hard physical evidence.
There's no murder weapon discovered. There's no article of clothing, as far as I could tell, that connects him to the crime.
However, detectives do uncover one potentially useful piece of information.
They find that he has a home security system.
That's great information because it allows the officers to then go further in their investigation to see what the security system provides.
It was one of those systems where the security company provides 24-hour monitoring of the premises.
We contacted them, and they provided us a history of the activity the system did each day.
Detectives quickly scroll to the early morning of November 18th, just hours before Tiara's fiancé, Martell Robinson, found her barely alive in their apartment.
Kevin maintains that he never left his house. Brooke maintains that Kevin was there. However, the security system says otherwise. Someone in Kevin's home left the house about 4:37 a.m.
After that, there was no activity until 5:55 a.m.
That's a whole hour's time that someone was out. And that's plenty of time to get from Hammond to Portage for Kevin to get to Tiara's house and get back.
However, detectives aren't quite ready to make an arrest. They want one last piece of information to cement their case against Kevin: his cell phone records.
In addition to the information the phone directly provides, we can ask for cell tower information, and which we did in this case.
The records are telling.
At 5:38 a.m., Kevin's cell phone pinged on a tower in Portage, one of the closest towers to Tiara's home.
The tower puts Kevin within 1 mile of Tiara's apartment on the morning she was killed. It's the final piece of the puzzle.
The officers had enough evidence to charge Kevin with the murder of Tiara.
However, taking Tiara's killer into custody won't be a simple matter of knocking on his door and putting him in cuffs.
They had to arrest Kevin with caution. With him being a police officer, he had a lot of tactical gear and weapons.
He possessed body armor, so that ratchets up the chances for something bad to happen. So we made a decision that, hey, we're going to utilize the SWAT team to do this.
It's before dawn on December 3rd, 2 weeks after the murder, when the SWAT team moves into position around Kevin's house.
Talking with the detectives, Kevin had a little bit of a routine.
His wife worked at a 24-hour restaurant. She would start at 6 a.m. He would drive her to work. So the plan was to get him at home really right when he comes out, where he just doesn't expect this.
We were probably on site by around 5 a.m.
Hey, Jason, you got anything yet?
No, nothing yet.
It seemed like an eternity. It was getting to be past 6 o'clock. We have this arrest warrant. So now I'm trying to decide, do we just kick the door and go in and get him?
I don't see anything on the side of the house either. Wait, I've got a light on inside now.
Shortly after 6 o'clock, he starts to come outside, and we had the house surrounded.
Police! Look your hand! Stay there! Don't move!
The SWAT team moved in. Who knows what went through his mind? He took off running.
Stay right there! Got it!
Prior to becoming the chief, I was on the SWAT team for 12 years, going after people involved in major acts of violence such as this. So once we developed Kevin as a suspect, knowing that he's an officer, had a lot of training, a lot of experience, we started talking about the way to arrest him. All eyes were going to be on us. And Portage is probably like a lot of typical Midwestern towns. Homicides don't happen all that often, but when they do, we've got really good people to, handle these kinds of investigations. And I don't think Kevin was banking on that.
On December 3rd, 2015, 2 weeks after the murder of Tiara Thomas, a SWAT team has just confronted her ex-boyfriend, 31-year-old Kevin Campbell, outside his home.
As he exits the house, they try to apprehend him, but he takes off running.
Stay right there. I got him. Go around. Left leg, come on.
We had people in the front yard and tackled him and took him down. He was taken into custody without anyone getting hurt, and you couldn't ask for a better scenario.
January 9th, 2018. As the trial for Kevin Campbell gets underway, prosecutors face an uphill battle against the former officer.
They didn't have gunshot residue, they didn't have DNA, no footprints or tracks to even tie Kevin to the murder. I mean, it was going to be based solely on circumstantial evidence.
However, prosecutors believe they have a compelling argument based on the financial benefit Kevin stood to gain in the event of Tiara's death.
The child support was estimated at about $1,500 a month, and that was a substantial part of Kevin's monthly check.
Though the monthly payout was painful enough, prosecutors claim that Tiara's engagement to Martell Robinson was the final straw that pushed Kevin over the edge.
He was not just concerned about the money that was going out, but now she's got a new man in her life, and he thinks some of the money is going to be benefiting him.
According to the prosecution, Kevin had come up with a drastic solution.
The prosecutors argued that Kevin intentionally and deliberately took the children during a weekday, a time that he normally doesn't take the kids, so that he can have the kids out of the house, but also so that he could have access to the house key to get into the home.
Then, while his wife and children slept, he quietly slipped out of the house, though his movements didn't go undetected.
The home security system shows that on the night of the murder, somebody left out of that residence.
At 4:37 in the morning, Kevin left the house, drove to Tiara's home, where the cell phone tower showed he was in the area around that time.
Using the key he took from his son, prosecutors believe Kevin entered Tiara's apartment and crept quietly into the bedroom, gun in hand.
He put a pillow over her to silence the gun and pulled the trigger while she slept.
She would survive the first shots, and thought is she was even able to put up a bit of a struggle. The shot that went through both arms would be a type of defensive wound.
His final shot was to her head, and while she fell to the ground, he took off.
Prosecutors argued that Kevin left the scene of the crime with plenty of time to drive home, walk in the house before 6 o'clock, just in enough time to take the kids to school.
To solidify their case, prosecutors called Kevin's son to the stand.
The son stated that his dad asked him to bring his key with him.
He also told the jury about his father stopping at the park and throwing something out on his way to school that morning.
The significance of that is obviously the fact that Kevin may be possibly getting rid of some evidence of this crime.
This was just devastating, coming from Kevin's own son.
When it's the defense's turn, Kevin's attorney makes the most of the case's circumstantial nature.
The defense was painting this as there was no hard physical evidence, no DNA, nothing really tying Kevin to this murder.
To bolster his case, Kevin takes the stand to provide his own emotional testimony.
He was extremely emotional and hurt by the fact that he was accused, but also by the fact that there was another murderer out there and he was innocent of this crime.
He says he can never hurt the mother of his 3 children.
Kevin also testified that he was behind on bills, but he was not financially depressed to that extent.
Kevin methodically dismisses almost every piece of evidence the prosecution has presented, from triggering the door alarm to stopping at the park on the way to school.
Kevin said he did open the door at 4:30 in the morning, just as the security system recorded, but that he was taking one of the baby's dirty diapers out to the trash.
He argued that the bag in his car was naughty tissues that he collected from his children.
But will his explanations be enough to sway the jury?
He was found guilty. It was a quick verdict, hour and a half or so. That's fast.
Not that Kevin accepts the jury's decision.
In the sentencing hearing, Kevin continues to hold on to his innocence, claiming for the family and community that he would one day find the murderer of Tierra.
Kevin's plea holds little water for the judge.
Kevin was sentenced to 55 years in prison. Under the state law, he would have to serve 75% of that time before he is eligible for parole. He won't be out until his 70s, at least.
Though justice was served, this brutal crime had more than one victim.
This story was tragic for, so many reasons.
3 children don't have a mother, really don't have a father.
They have to know and live with for the rest of their lives that their own father killed their mother.
Those closest to Tierra are doing all they can to give her children the life she wanted them to have.
Tierra's mom had to step up and take responsibility of raising her 3 kids, and she hasn't really had time to grieve because she has had to put, a brave face on for these kids and get them through this.
Martel's still involved in their life. He's taken them places, games, and so that's a testament to him.
But no amount of love can fill the void Tierra's untimely death left in the hearts of her fiancé and her children.
That's going to leave scars for a long time, if not forever.
And it's just something that shouldn't have happened.
The ultimate tragedy is that a woman who was a terrific mother and by all accounts a very nice, wonderful person was killed and certainly didn't deserve anything like this.
There was nothing that could stop them from achieving their dreams.
They were ambitious and they both wanted more.
They played well off of each other.
Until a seemingly random crime tears their world apart.
He smashes out the window, reaches in to grab the purse.
He shot her 4 times.
Detectives will do whatever they can to catch the killer.
It was so brazen. It was the day after Christmas.
No stone is going to be unturned.
But nothing can prepare them for the shocking truth.
Ruthless and heartless. It was horrible.
I was in total disbelief.
Is there a serial killer on the loose? Or is this the ultimate act of betrayal?
You felt so bad for this person, and now it turns out that person's guilty.
You're capable of a lot if you would do this.
Sandy continued, his knuckles white around the iron poker. She panicked. She told me she was going to confess. She was going to ruin everything. The whole damn empire. Our name. Everyone would know we were the descendants of a traitor. So you shot your own grandmother? Jimmy asked, repulsed. I had to. Sandy screamed, tears streaming down his face. I had to protect us. She was old. She had lived her life. But if that journal got out, the Haldanes would lose everything. They'd take the boats, the money, the respect. And Hattie? Sandy shuddered, closing his eyes. She saw the journal in the tent. She read the names. I didn't want to hurt her, Inspector. I swear. But she ran. I chased her. And I had the knife. I just couldn't let her tell. It's over, Sandy, Jimmy said softly, taking a step forward. You're a police officer. You know how this ends. Put the poker down. Sandy looked at the iron bar in his hand, then out the window at the roaring fire illuminating the Shetland sky. The Viking galley was burning to ash, taking its secrets with it. I wanted to be a good detective, sir, Sandy whispered, a sad, broken smile touching his lips. I really did. He raised the iron poker, not at Jimmy, but swinging it wildly toward his own head. No! Jimmy lunged forward, tackling the young officer to the floor. The poker crashed into the coffee table, splintering the wood. They wrestled on the carpet, Sandy fighting with the manic strength of a doomed man. But Jimmy was older, heavier, and fueled by righteous anger. He pinned Sandy down, wrenching his arms behind his back and snapping the handcuffs shut with a brutal click. Sandy collapsed against the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Joseph Wilson sat on the sofa, frozen in horror, watching his son a murderer twice over being read his rights. Tosh burst through the back door, breathing heavily, assessing the scene in a split second. Call for a transport, Jimmy ordered, hauling Sandy to his feet. He looked at the young man, feeling no triumph, only a profound, crushing sorrow for the island that had bred such dark loyalty. Yes, sir, Tosh said quietly, reaching for her radio. As they walked Sandy out of the house and into the freezing Shetland night, the wind howled off the North Sea, carrying the scent of salt, ancient ice, and the bitter ashes of the burning galley. The secrets of Bresse had finally been unearthed, but the scars they left behind would take generations to heal. End of part 2. The architecture of masks. Prologue. The cost of a coat. The human face is the most elaborate lie ever constructed. We spend our lives curated by expectations, dressing ourselves in the fabrics of our professions, our marriages, and our social standing. But for some, the mask isn't a social necessity, it is the entire self. In the late afternoon light of Orange County, 1979, the sun didn't just shine, it glared. It bounced off the chrome of luxury cars and the glass of medical plazas, promising a version of the American dream that was as sterile as a surgical suite. Inside one of these suites, a man adjusted his stethoscope. He looked like a doctor. He spoke like a doctor. He even smelled of antiseptic and authority. But Gerald Barnbaum knew that if you peel back enough layers of a mask, eventually you find nothing but the cold, hard vacuum of a man who never existed. Chapter 1, The Clinic of Silence. Rick D'Alessandro was a man who believed in the tangible. He believed in blood pressure readings, the steady rhythm of a healthy heart, and the clear, unambiguous data of a lab report. As a physician's assistant, his job was to be the bridge between the patient's suffering and the doctor's wisdom. In 1979, that wisdom supposedly resided in Dr. Gerald Barnes. He was a charming man. Rick would later recall, his voice carrying the weight of a decade's worth of hindsight. A little guy, but he filled a room. He had that bedside manner they don't teach in school, the kind that makes you feel like you're the only person in the world. The clinic in Orange County was a hive of activity. Dr. Barnes was the director, a position of prestige that he occupied with a natural, almost theatrical grace. He was the doctor's doctor, the man who stayed late, the man who remembered the names of his patients' children. But Rick noticed small things. A hesitation when discussing complex pharmacology. A certain vagueness when the conversation drifted toward the minutiae of medical school rotations. At the time, Rick dismissed it. He's a busy man, he told himself. The administrative burden of being a director is heavy. Then came the morning of December 26th, the day after Christmas. The world was nursing a collective hangover of celebration, and the clinic was quiet, save for the hum of the air conditioning and the occasional cough from the waiting room. John Mackenzie walked in, or rather, he shuffled. He was 29 years old, a man in the prime of his life, but he looked like a ghost. His skin was the color of old parchment, and his eyes were sunken, darting around with a frantic, unfocused energy. I'm so thirsty, Rick, John whispered. His voice was raspy, as if his throat were lined with sand. I drink and I drink, and it just goes through me. I'm dizzy. The room won't stay still. Rick performed the intake. Extreme weight loss, polyuria, polydipsia, the classic triad. To a trained eye, the red flags were waving violently. He ushered John into the exam room where Dr. Barnes waited. Dizziness, A. The doctor said, his voice a soothing baritone. He patted John on the shoulder. Probably just a touch of vertigo. A little inner ear imbalance. It's been a stressful season. John, we'll get you fixed up. Rick watched as Barnes scribbled a prescription for an anti-vertigo medication. No immediate finger stick for blood sugar. No urgent hospitalization. Just a slip of paper and a see you next week. Doctor, shouldn't we? Rick started. We've ordered the blood tests. Rick, Barnes interrupted, flashing a bright, practiced smile. The lab will have them by tomorrow. Let the man go home and rest. It's the holidays. John Mackenzie left the clinic clutching a prescription that was effectively a death warrant. He walked out into the California sun, his body screaming for insulin, his blood turning into a thick, syrupy poison. Chapter 2. the weight of 1,200. The next day, the clinic felt different. The air was heavy. Dr. Barnes had the day off a reward for his hard work during the holiday rush. The lab results arrived in a manila envelope. Rick opened it, his heart skipping a beat as he scanned the numbers. He looked for the glucose line. He expected to see a high number, perhaps 200 or 300. The number on the page was 1,200. In the medical world, a blood sugar of 1,200 isn't just a high reading. It is an emergency of the highest order. It is the threshold of a diabetic coma. It is the body's internal systems failing in real time. My God, Rick whispered. He didn't wait. He didn't call the director. He grabbed the phone and started dialing. He called John's home, no answer. He called John's ex-wife. His emergency contacts, nothing. A cold dread began to pool in Rick's stomach. I need a wellness check for John Mackenzie, Rick told the dispatcher at the Garden Grove Police Department. This is a medical emergency. He could be dead or dying. The police arrived at John's apartment an hour later. The silence behind the door was absolute. When they kicked it in, they found him in the kitchen. He was lying on the linoleum, his hand outstretched toward a glass of water he never reached. In his other hand was the prescription for the vertigo pills, the useless scraps of paper given to him by a man of science. John Mackenzie was dead. He was 29 years old. He left behind a 4-year-old daughter named Jill, who would spend the rest of her life wondering why her father never came home from the doctor. Chapter 3, The Actors Resume. Grief is a powerful catalyst. For Rick D'Alessandro, the grief for John Mackenzie quickly curdled into a sharp, piercing suspicion. How could a medical director miss a 1,200 blood sugar? How could a man with a medical degree treat a dying diabetic with vertigo pills? Rick sat in his office, the clinic now feeling like a house of mirrors. He picked up the phone and called the medical board in Sacramento. I'd like to verify the credentials of Dr. Gerald Barnes, he said. One moment, the clerk replied. we have a Gerald Barnes, orthopedic surgeon, practicing in Stockton. Stockton. Rick frowned. That's 400 miles away. This Dr. Barnes is a GP in Orange County. Would you like us to fax his identification photo? When the fax machine began to work and spit out the grainy image, Rick felt the world tilt. The man in the photo was older, with different features, a different jawline. It was a face he had never seen in his life. The man he had been working for, the man who had just treated John Mackenzie, was not Gerald Barnes. The investigation that followed unraveled a lie of staggering proportions. The man at the clinic was actually Gerald Barnbaum, a former pharmacist from Chicago. Barnbaum wasn't a doctor. He was a failed actor and a convicted fraudster who had been caught in a Medicaid scam years earlier. When his pharmacy license was revoked, Barnbaum didn't reflect or repent. He simply decided to play a bigger role. He moved to California, changed a few letters of his name, and borrowed the identity of a real doctor. He had called the medical board, claimed he lost his license, and they, without a single background check, sent him a duplicate. He had spent years seeing 30 to 40 patients a day. He had diagnosed illnesses, performed exams, and prescribed narcotics. He had lived a life of prestige, earning a high salary and the respect of his community, all while operating on the medical knowledge of a high school student and a few years of pharmacy school. He was an actor, investigator Eddie Banks would later say, and the clinic was his stage. Every patient was an audience member, and his performance was so good that even the experts didn't look behind the curtain. On August 8, 1980, the curtain finally fell. Gerald Barnbaum was arrested. He didn't look like a killer. He looked like a likable little guy who had made a mistake. But the state of California didn't see a mistake. They saw manslaughter. Chapter 4, The Interstate Shadow. While Gerald Barnbaum was beginning his first prison stint several states away, another man was discovering the thrill of the mask. David Brinkle did not look like a bank robber. He was impeccably dressed, often in custom-tailored suits that suggested a man of significant means. He was an entrepreneur, a consultant, a visionary. In the small, close-knit town of Bloomington, Indiana, he was the kind of man people wanted to be around. Phil Sperry, a local businessman, was one of them. He was smooth, Phil remembered. He had an answer for everything. He rented an office from us, claimed he was starting an architectural and construction firm called ACR. He talked about big projects, city planning, the future. But David Brankel's future wasn't built on blueprints and bricks. It was built on the interstate. Brankel lived a life of compartmentalized geography. In one town, he was the devoted father and husband. In another, he was the dashing boyfriend to a waitress named Donna. And on the highways that connected them, he was the interstate bankmart bandit. His method was a masterpiece of efficiency. He didn't hit the massive, high-security banks in city centers. He targeted the small branches inside grocery stores and bankmarts. They were usually staffed by younger, less experienced tellers. They were located near major highway on-ramps. He would walk in, often wearing a fishing hat or a simple pair of tan coveralls. He didn't shout. He didn't wave a gun. He would slide a note across the counter. I have a gun. Be quiet. Go home alive. He would be in and out in less than 90 seconds. By the time the police were dispatched, Brankel would be back on the I-65 or the I-70, his black BMW cruising at the speed limit, the stolen cash tucked away in a designer briefcase. I think the guy I'm looking for is doing the exact same thing I'm doing. Detective Larry Duncan would later muse. Duncan was the man tasked with catching him. I was sitting at my computer, looking at maps of grocery stores near interstates. And on the other side of the screen, in some hotel room or rented office, David Brankel was doing the same thing. It was a game of digital chess played across state lines. Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, Tennessee. Brankel was a ghost who left no fingerprints and no trail except for the pattern of his robberies. Chapter 5. The Two-Way Mirror. By the mid-90s, Gerald Barnbaum was out of prison. He had served his time for the death of John Mackenzie, but the prison walls hadn't changed him. They had only refined his craft. While incarcerated, he had taken medical correspondence courses. He had studied the language of healing so he could more effectively poison the truth. He stepped out of the prison gates and immediately stepped back into a lab coat. This time, he found Lisa Roberts. He was the perfect husband, Lisa said, her voice trembling with the ghost of a memory. Flowers, dinners, concerts. He swept me off my feet. He was Dr. Gerald Barnes, the medical director of a high-end clinic in Los Angeles. He made 6 figures. We were going to have children. We were going to build a life. For over a year, Lisa shared a bed with a man whose name she didn't know. She watched him leave for work every morning, his stethoscope draped around his neck like a badge of honor. She attended company functions where other doctors sought his advice. Even the FBI used his clinic for their agent physicals. Think of the irony. 100 FBI agents trained to spot deception, stripped down to their underwear, and let an imposter listen to their hearts. The mask was perfect until the Christmas party of 1996. Rick D'Alessandro was there. Fate, it seems, has a sense of dark humor. Rick was attending the same industry event. He was checking in at the desk when he saw a man across the room. A likable little guy with a familiar smile. Rick looked at the man's lapel. The name tag read, "Hi, I'm Dr. Barnes." The blood drained from Rick's face. "You've got to be kidding me," he whispered. He walked over. The music was playing something festive and bright. The air smelled of expensive cologne and champagne. "Hi, Rick," the imposter said, not missing a beat. His voice was as cool as the ice in his drink. "How are you doing?" "Well, Gerald," Rick replied, his voice shaking with fury. "I'm not doing too well. Because you're doing the same thing you did in the 70s. You're a fraud." Barnbaum didn't panic. He didn't run. He leaned in, his eyes soft and pleading. Rick, you don't understand. This is all just a big mistake. I can go home and get the paperwork. I can prove everything. Then go get it, the clinic supervisor said, having overheard the exchange. Barnbaum walked out the door. He didn't go home for paperwork. He went into the night, disappearing into the neon labyrinth of Los Angeles. But the FBI was no longer his patient. They were his hunters. Chapter 6, The Art of the Escape. David Brankel was also beginning to feel the heat. It was 2003, and the IBM Task Force, a coalition of detectives from multiple states, was closing in. They had a nickname for him now, IBM. They had a photo of his car, black BMW. They had a theory about his home base in Indiana. They even had a name for their trap, Operation Intercept. On September 6, 2003, Brankel hit his 35th bank. He walked into a U.S. bank in Louisville, slid his note, and took the cash. The police radio crackled to life. Operation Intercept. Operation Intercept. Detectives flooded the highways. They pulled over every black BMW they saw. They searched trunks, checked IDs, and waited for the bandit to fall into their lap. But David Brankel was smarter than the average thief. He didn't take the interstate. He knew the police would be watching the veins of the city, so he took the back roads, the winding rural paths where the only witnesses were the cornfields and the crows. He slipped through the news, listening to the police scanner in his car, a smug smile on his face. He was listening to us, Detective Duncan said. He was one step ahead because he had no conscience to slow him down. Brankel returned to his safe zone. In Vincennes, he was a consultant for the Logan family, who were building a pet store empire. He sat at their dinner table, played with their children, and took their money for consultation fees. He was God's gift to us, Peggy Logan said, or so we thought. At the same time, Brankel was maintaining his relationship with Donna. She was now his getaway driver. They were the modern Bonnie and Clyde, fueled by a mixture of narcissism and high-octane gasoline. My mother said I couldn't even mow the lawn right. Brankel told Donna during one of their long drives. But look at me now. I'm the most successful bank robber in history. He wasn't robbing for the money anymore. He was robbing to prove that the mask was realer than the man. Chapter 7, The Collapse. The end of a lie is rarely a grand explosion. It is usually a series of small, pathetic cracks. For Gerald Barnbaum, the crack was a bus ticket. After being caught again in 1996, he had been sentenced to 12.5 years. But in 2000, while being transferred between facilities, the system made a fatal error. Because he was a low-security inmate, nonviolent fraudster in their eyes, they gave him a bus ticket and told him to report to a prison in Illinois. He didn't go to Illinois. He went back to the only life he knew. He ended up in a North Hollywood clinic, wearing a white coat and a stethoscope, seeing patients under the name Gerald Barnes. When U.S. Marshals finally tracked him down, they walked into the clinic and called out his real name, Gerald Barnbaum. The man in the white coat turned around. He didn't fight. He didn't try to explain. He just looked at the handcuffs and sighed. "You guys are good," he said. For David Brankel, the end came on a cold December day in 2003. He was driving his BMW in Bloomington when he nearly hit a car driven by an off-duty detective named Kevin Hill. It was a routine traffic stop that turned into a 100-mile-an-hour chase. Brankel disregarded stop signs, drove into oncoming traffic, and eventually left the police in the dust. But he had dropped his driver's license. The police went to his home in Vincennes. They found him trying to flee with his son in the car. He abandoned the vehicle and ran on foot, a small knife in his pocket, tripping over a curb in a maze of apartment buildings. When the handcuffs clicked shut, the entrepreneur was gone. The consultant was gone. All that was left was a tired, 46-year-old man who had robbed 43 banks and had nothing to show for it but a suitcase full of disguises. Epilogue: The empty room. In the end, What remains of a man who spent his life being someone else? Gerald Barnbaum is in a federal prison in Minnesota. He is in his 70s now. The real Dr. Gerald Barnes, the orthopedic surgeon from Stockton, still deals with the wreckage of his stolen identity. It's a headache that never goes away, he says. David Brankel is serving 21 years. The Logans and the Sperrys never got their money back. Donna, the Bonnie to his Clyde, received house arrest. The victims aren't just the people who lost money or the families who lost loved ones like John Mackenzie. The victims are the very concepts of trust and truth. We look at the man in the white coat. We look at the businessman in the suit. We want to believe that the clothes make the man. But as Rick D'Alessandro learned in a quiet clinic in 1979, sometimes the clothes are just a costume, and the man underneath is just a ghost, searching for a face that was never his to begin with. Shadows of the Stolen Soul. The Architecture of Deceit. Prologue, The Mirror's Lie. In the quiet, suburban sprawl of late 70s California, identity was a currency that few thought to verify. People were who they said they were. A handshake was a contract, and a white lab coat was an altar. Gerald Barnbaum understood this better than anyone. He didn't just want to be a doctor. He wanted the reverence of being one. He wanted the hush that fell over a room when he entered, the way people leaned in to hear his pronouncements, and the steady, unquestioned flow of authority. He was an actor who had found his ultimate stage, and the patients were an audience who paid with their lives. Miles away, and years later, David Brankel would find a different stage. His was the concrete ribbons of the American interstate system, the fluorescent-lit aisles of grocery store banks, and the desperate adrenaline of a man who believed his own lies. This is the story of two men who refused to be themselves, and the trail of broken lives they left in their wake. Part 1, The Cost of a Coat. Chapter 1, The Performance Begins. The Pacific Southwest Medical Group in Orange County smelled of antiseptic and misplaced trust. It was 1978, and the sun baked the asphalt outside. But inside, the air-conditioned cool offered a sanctuary for the sick. Rick D'Alessandro, a young and earnest physician's assistant, looked up as Dr. Gerald Barnes entered the clinic. Barnes was a likable little guy, as Rick would later recall. He had a quick wit, a disarming smile, and an energy that seemed to say, "I have everything under control." "Good morning, Rick," the doctor chirped, snapping a chart into his clipboard. Another day, another miracle to perform. Rick smiled back, unaware that he was watching a master class in theater. Gerald Barnbaum, the man inside the coat, was a pharmacist from Chicago who had lost his license in a Medicaid scam. But here, under the golden California sun, he was reborn. He had called the medical board, claimed to be a certain Dr. Gerald Barnes from Stockton, and requested a duplicate license. They had sent it without a second thought. For years, Barnbaum played the part. He saw 30, sometimes 40 patients a day. He diagnosed, he prescribed, he consoled. He was elevated to medical director. He was a pillar of the community. But beneath the stethoscope, there was a hollow space where medical knowledge should have been. He wasn't practicing medicine, he was mimicking it. Chapter 2, The Diabetic Ghost. December 26, 1979. The day after Christmas. The world was in a sugar-coated haze, but John Mackenzie felt like he was burning from the inside out. He was 29 years old, a father to a 4-year-old girl named Jill, and he was dying. He walked into the clinic with a thirst that no amount of water could quench. His eyes sunken, his breath smelling faintly of fermented fruit. I'm so tired, Doc," Mackenzie whispered, leaning against the examination table. "Dizzy. My mouth is like a dessert." Barnbaum, the man Mackenzie knew as Dr. Barnes, looked at him with professional concern. He didn't see a patient in an acute ketoacidotic crisis. He saw a nuisance on a busy morning. He performed a cursory exam, noted the dizziness, and reached for his prescription pad. Antivert Barnbaum said, scribbling the name of an anti-vertigo drug. It's probably just a viral inner ear thing. Get some rest, John. We'll run some blood work just to be safe. John Mackenzie left the clinic clutching a piece of paper that might as well have been a death warrant. The next day, the lab results arrived. Rick D'Alessandro was the first to see them. He stared at the numbers, his heart hammering against his ribs. Blood glucose, 1,200 milligrams DL. A normal level was 100. At 1,200, the blood becomes thick, acidic, and toxic. It is a medical emergency of the highest order. Where's Barnes? Rick shouted, looking around the clinic. He's got the day off, a nurse replied. Rick didn't wait. He grabbed the phone, calling Mackenzie's home, his ex-wife, anyone. Silence. Finally, he called the Garden Grove police. When the officers kicked in the door of Mackenzie's apartment, they found him on the kitchen floor. He was cold. In his hand, he still held the prescription for dizziness. He had died in a coma, a victim of a common, treatable disease and an uncommon, lethal fraud. Chapter 3, The Unmasking. The death of a 29-year-old was a tragedy. The negligence behind it was a crime. Rick D'Alessandro couldn't let it go. How could a doctor, a medical director, miss a blood sugar of 1,200? He called the medical board in Sacramento. I need the file on Dr. Gerald Barnes, he said, the one working in Orange County. A few hours later, the fax machine groaned to life. Rick watched as the grainy image of the real Dr. Gerald Barnes emerged. It was a man from Stockton, an older man, an orthopedic surgeon, a man who looked nothing like the likable little guy in the office next door. The realization hit Rick like a physical blow. He wasn't working for a bad doctor. He was working for a ghost. On August 8th, 1980, the charade ended. The police arrived not for a consultation, but for an arrest. Gerald Barnbaum was charged with practicing medicine without a license and, more significantly, manslaughter. It was a Medicaid scam in Chicago that started it. Investigator Eddie Banks noted as they dug into the past. Barnbaum was a failed pharmacist and a frustrated actor. He had combined his two greatest failures to create a deadly success. In 1981, Barnbaum pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 3 years. To the family of John Mackenzie, it felt like an insult. Their father was gone, replaced by a 3-year vacation for the man who killed him. But for Barnbaum, prison was just an intermission. Chapter 4, The Relapse of Identity. Identity theft is an addiction. Some people crave drugs. Gerald Barnbaum craved the title of doctor. Released after 18 months, he didn't go back to pharmacy or theater. He went back to the lab coat. He changed cities, moved to Los Angeles, and applied for jobs using the same stolen credentials. In 1996, he was living a dream. He was married to a woman named Lisa Roberts. He was a 6-figure medical director. He was romantic, charming, and supposedly brilliant. I didn't know his real name. Lisa would later sob to investigators. I didn't know his real age. The man I shared my bed with was a stranger. The end came at an industry Christmas party. In a scene straight out of a thriller, Barnbaum bumped into an old acquaintance, Rick D'Alessandro. Rick looked at the man's lapel. "Hi, I'm Dr. Barnes." "Hello, Gerald," Rick said, his voice cold as ice. "I see you're still doing the same thing you did in the 70s. Barnbaum didn't blink. "Rick, good to see you. You must be mistaken. This is all a big misunderstanding." He promised to go home and get his documentation. Instead, he vanished. But the FBI was already closing in. Special Agent Marie Kinjofsky discovered that Barnbaum had even performed physicals for over 100 FBI agents. The irony was suffocating. This time, the judge was done. Barnbaum was sentenced to 12.5 years. Even then, he wasn't finished. During a low-security transfer in 2000, he was given a bus ticket to report to a new facility. He never got on the bus. Instead, He went to North Hollywood, put on a white coat, and started seeing patients again. When the U.S. Marshals finally cornered him in a clinic, he was wearing a stethoscope. He looked at them and simply said, "You guys are good." Gerald Barnbaum, the man who couldn't stop being someone else, was finally sent away for good, leaving behind a legacy of $5 million in fraud and one empty chair at John Mackenzie's Thanksgiving table. Part 2, The Interstate Phantom. Chapter 5, The Smooth Operator. While Barnbaum was a parasite of the medical world, David Brankel was a predator of the interstates. He appeared in Bloomington, Indiana, in 1999 like a character out of a Gatsby novel. He was impeccably dressed, smooth-talking, and carried the aura of a man who moved millions. He rented an office from Phil and Bonnie Sperry, claiming his company, ACR, was a powerhouse in architecture and construction. He always had the right answer, Phil Sperry recalled. He was cool. He was smooth. Brankel was a master of the long con. He didn't just rob you. He made you feel privileged to be robbed. He convinced Bonnie Sperry to start an interior design firm called Trade Secrets. He used their name to open house accounts at high-end clothing stores.